Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I'm Masrudin. My student ID number is A1M2-19046. In this video, I'm gonna be explaining to you about high-stakes tests as de facto language education policies. So, there has been an increase in the use of high-stakes standardized testing over the past 20 years in school systems around the world, whereby important consequences are attached to a single test score, often as part of standard-based education reform effort. A test becomes high stakes when a single test score is used as the main factor in determining significant educational decisions. Internationally, single test scores carry high-stakes consequences for individual students as they are used to determine achievement, learning level, grade, promotion, and then grade retention, attainment of a diploma, and university admission. Raising of the stakes even further, students' performance results on these tests are also being used by government to evaluate teacher and school and the entire school system as a means to hold educators and educational system responsible for students' learning. Okay, so there will be 5 subtopics will be discussed for the rest of the video, which are definition, and then the early development, major contribution, work in progress, and future direction. Okay, now let's move to the first subtopic, high stakes testing. So it's a text that is used to make decision about outcomes related to punishment, accolades, advancement, and then compensation. So that tests are high stakes are used to determine whether students pass the next level or whether a professor keeps their job and receive a bonus, and whether school receives such penalties, for example like removing a principal. Okay, the next is language policy. So it refers to formal and informal decision about language use, which includes laws, registration, statutes, as well as practice, and then beliefs, management, and so on. And language education policies determine which languages are taught and used as medium of instruction, and then how they are taught, and how linguistic diversity is negotiated in school in a country. Okay, now let's move to the second subtopic, early development. So today's standardized tests have historical roots in the mental measurements movement that focus on intelligence quotient or IQ testing. Spolsky, 1995, reports that the whole testing movement initially flourished in the United States and spread globally after World War I. And the development of intelligence tests and IQ testing in particular coincided with a rapid increase in immigration to the United States at the turn of the 20th centuries. From the beginning, testing has been exploited as a means to expert power, authority, and control. So, scientifically proven to be neutral and impartial, tests very effective sort, select, and punish. Okay, next is major contribution. Okay, as we can see on the screen, Shohami 2001 was the first author to argue that language testing is actually de facto language policy, particularly when high stakes are attached. As she wrote in the introduction of her book, The Power of Tests, so Professor Bernard Spolsky and her were asked to propose a new language policy for Israel, and given her background and interest in language testing, she again learned about the power of tests as it became clear to her that the language testing policy was the de facto language policy. And further, no policy change can take place without a change in testing policy, as the testing policy becomes de facto language policy. Shohami 2001. But One major critique of high-stakes standardized testing in the workbook literature is that curricula and instruction are narrowed as a consequence, such that the material on the test drives what is taught and teaching to the best becomes commonplace. However, we have to remember that the higher the stakes of an exam, the more likely it is that the test will shape teaching, learning, and language policy. So the notion of using high stakes testing is positively change teaching is innately problematic due to the pressure it creates to teach to the test. Okay, now let's move to the fourth subtopic, which is work in progress. So, research conducted in the United States shows how monolingual testing serves to marginalize emergent bilinguals and their language practice, limit their language opportunities, and encourage monolingual language policies in the school. And U.S. federal education policy entitled No Child Left Behind, or NCLB, was passed into law by Congress in 2001. Under the law, emergent bilinguals are to be tested annually in English language proficiency and academic content, with failure resulting in high-stakes consequences for schools and school system. Meanwhile, a number of studies, for example, Evan and Hornberger 2005, Mencken 2008, Mencken and Solorza 2014, show how this policy of monolingual testing raises the status of English while it suppresses non-tested language and has directly contributed to the elimination of bilingual education program. And then another is Crawford 2004 reports that NCLB testing policies undermine bilingual education programs when the tests are provided in English only. And then the last is Shohami 2011 that proposed the use of multilingual testing to better match the actual language practice of emergent bilinguals. That means that said very little research to date has been conducted about the actual development and implementation of multilingual assessment. As such, this is a promising area for future research. Okay, now let's move to the fifth or the last subtopic, which is future direction. So, as described before, language policies are created by high-stakes testing at every level of educational system around the world in ad hoc, uncoordinated, and often competing ways. So, in light with these complex issues and limited research on testing as language education policy, there are needs for further research in this area. So more research is needed to 1. Explore how testing shapes and affects language education policies and offers guidance for the use of assessment to inform educational policies and instruction in a positive way. Second, learn if the use of multiple measures of students' achievement for high-stakes decision-making would have the same impact of language medium of instruction, language standardization, and language status that the use of a single test score has had. The third, study the development of clear and cohesive school-wide language policies in individual school would be valuable to learn. And then the fourth, study on how assessment practice can be informed by the newer terms languaging paradigm. And then the fifth is better understand the possibilities for aligned testing practice to multilingual language policies. The sixth or the last is study on the interplay between testing practice and language education policies so that their impact can also be better understood and mediated. Okay, I think enough for this video about high stakes tests as the facto language education policies. Please forgive me if I made some mistakes, and then thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Goodbye and see you in the next video.